The diamond glinted under the harsh police flashlight, nestled in the dark corner of David's glove compartment where I would never normally look. My sister Jessica's wedding ring, the one she'd been wearing when she disappeared 3 days ago after my own wedding reception. The engraving inside confirmed it. Forever and always. 06/12/22. My stomach dropped as Detective Morrison's eyes met mine, his expression shifting from professional detachment to something worse. Pity. Mrs. Taylor, do you recognize this item? His voice echoed in the parking garage, but all I could hear was the thundering of my pulse in my ears. It's Jessica's. The words scraped my throat. My sister's wedding ring. My new husband stood 10 feet away, hands cuffed behind his back, his face a mask of calculated confusion. Emily, this is insane. I have no idea how that got there. You have to believe me. But as I stared at him, this man I'd promised my life to just 3 days earlier, all I could think about was Jessica's tearful face at our reception, how she'd grabbed my arm and whispered that she needed to tell me something important about David. And now she was gone, her car abandoned at the Vista Point lookout, her phone unanswered, and her wedding ring mysteriously in my husband's car. David Taylor, you're under arrest for questioning in connection with the disappearance of Jessica Collins, Detective Morrison recited, but I barely heard the Miranda rights that followed. Mom collapsed against Dad in the background, her anguished wail cutting through the night. Our perfect small-town life in Oak Ridge, Connecticut had shattered in an instant. Emily, David called out as they led him away. Call Benson! Tell him it's a setup! Someone's framing me! But I couldn't move, couldn't speak. The detective placed the ring in an evidence bag, sealing it with mechanical efficiency while my world imploded. Mrs. Taylor, we'll need you to come to the station to make a formal statement. Detective Morrison's partner, a young woman with kind eyes, placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. Is there someone who can drive you? I looked at my parents, Mom sobbing uncontrollably, Dad looking 20 years older than he had at my wedding, and my voice returned with surprising steadiness. I can drive myself. As I followed the police cruiser through the quiet streets of Oak Ridge, past the white picket fences and carefully manicured lawns, my mind raced through a slideshow of memories. Jessica helping me into my wedding dress, her forced smile during the toast, the whispered warning she never finished, her husband Richard's frantic call the next morning when she didn't come home, the search parties combing the woods near Vista Point, the growing dread with each passing hour, and David, charming, successful, beloved by everyone David, who had held me as I cried over my missing sister, who had joined the search parties and comforted my parents, who had seemed so genuinely concerned. The same David who apparently had my sister's wedding ring hidden in his car. At a red light, I caught a glimpse of myself in the rearview mirror. I still wore the face of a newlywed, hair professionally styled for a post-wedding brunch that never happened, eyes rimmed with expensive waterproof mascara that had indeed proven itself over days of tears. But behind that carefully curated exterior was a woman I no longer recognized, standing at the precipice of an abyss. My phone buzzed with a text from Richard, Jessica's husband of 2 years. They told me what they found. Call me when you can. Poor Richard. While I'd been celebrating my new marriage, he'd been living a nightmare, coordinating with police, posting flyers, checking hospitals. His voice had grown more hollow with each passing day. Now I wondered what this revelation was doing to him. As I pulled into the police station parking lot, another text came through, this one from an unknown number. I know what happened to Jessica. David isn't who you think he is. Check the cabin. Come alone. The cabin. My family's old summer place in the Berkshires, abandoned for years after Dad's business troubles forced us to sell it. How would David even know about it? And who was this mysterious texter? I sat in my car, staring at the message until Detective Morrison knocked on my window, startling me back to the immediate crisis. For now, I had to focus on telling them everything I knew. But as I walked into the station, my sister's face floated in my mind, her eyes wide with that urgent message she never delivered. Whatever she had tried to tell me, whatever had made her disappear, whatever had put her wedding ring in my husband's car, I would uncover it all, even if it destroyed every last illusion I had about the man I'd married. My name is Emily Taylor, née Collins, 32 years old, previously a curator at the Oak Ridge Historical Society, currently a woman whose life is measured in before and after. Before my sister vanished, after finding her ring, before my husband was taken in for questioning, after I started questioning everything. It's been 2 weeks since that night in the parking garage. David was released after 48 hours. Insufficient evidence to hold him. His lawyer, Marcus Benson, proudly announced to the waiting reporters outside the precinct. The ring alone wasn't enough, especially when David maintained that Jessica must have been in his car during the wedding preparations and dropped it accidentally. A simple, plausible explanation. Except Jessica had been meticulous about that ring, and she'd never mentioned being in David's car. I've moved out of our perfect colonial on Maple Street, the wedding gifts still in their boxes in the dining room. Mom and Dad insisted I stay with them, in my old bedroom with its faded blue walls, and the twin bed where Jessica and I used to whisper secrets late into the night. I'm grateful for the sanctuary, but every creak of the house reminds me that one of us is missing. David calls constantly, shows up at my parents' house with flowers, texts messages of devotion and confusion. I love you, Em. I don't understand what's happening. Let me help you through this. We should be together right now. Richard, Jessica's husband, calls too, but his messages are different. Desperate updates about the ongoing search, questions about Jessica's state of mind before she disappeared, and increasingly, pointed inquiries about David. Did Jessica ever mention feeling uncomfortable around him? Did you notice anything unusual between them? I haven't told anyone about the anonymous text directing me to the cabin. Not the police. Not my parents. Not Richard. I'm not sure why I'm keeping it secret, except that something deep in my gut warns me to be careful about who to trust. Detective Morrison checks in daily. They've expanded the search radius around Vista Point, brought in cadaver dogs, a term that makes Mom collapse every time it's mentioned, interviewed everyone from the wedding reception. They tracked Jessica's last cell phone ping to a tower near the Vista Point lookout, but the trail goes cold there. Her credit cards haven't been used. Her passport is still in her bedside drawer, according to Richard. We're pursuing all leads, Mrs. Taylor, Morrison says, his voice carefully professional. He doesn't call me Emily anymore, not since David's release. The formality feels like a wall being built between us, as if my husband's presumed innocence has somehow tainted me too. I've taken an indefinite leave from the Historical Society. My days are spent sifting through Jessica's social media accounts, texts, emails, anything that might offer a clue. Richard gave me access to everything, his eyes hollow with exhaustion, and something else I can't quite name. Grief? Suspicion? Fear? Jessica was a kindergarten teacher at Oak Ridge Elementary, beloved by her students and colleagues. The school has become a makeshift headquarters for volunteer search efforts, with Jessica's classroom transformed into a coordination center covered with maps and timelines. Her 5-year-old students made missing posters with wobbly handwriting and glitter. "We miss you, Ms. Collins." That lined the town's main street, slowly disintegrating in the summer rain. At night, I lie awake in my childhood bed, replaying every interaction Jessica had with David over the 4 years we'd been together. The way she hugged him at family gatherings. Was there tension I missed? Their dance at the wedding? Did she seem uncomfortable? The conversation that ended abruptly when I walked into the kitchen during Christmas last year. What were they discussing? And always, her face at the wedding reception, tear-streaked and urgent. "Emily, I need to tell you something about David. It's important." What was she going to say? What did she know? My phone buzzes again. Another text from the unknown number. Police won't find anything at Vista Point. He's too smart for that. Cabin is the key. Time running out. I stare at the ceiling. The familiar water stain that Jessica once told me looked like a turtle. My sister. My best friend. The one who knew all my secrets. Including the secret of the cabin. How our grandfather had built it himself. How we'd spent summers there catching fireflies in mason jars. How I'd had my first kiss with Tommy Weldon on the dock when I was 15. The cabin that officially no longer belongs to our family, sold during my father's financial troubles 10 years ago to some investment company we never met. Outside, a car door slams, and I peek through the blinds to see David standing in my parents' driveway, another bouquet in hand. His handsome face is haggard with what appears to be genuine worry, his normally perfect appearance rumpled. For a moment, my heart tugs with the muscle memory of love. Then I remember the diamond glinting in the glove compartment, and I let the blinds fall back into place. My phone buzzes with a call from Richard. I answer to his breathless voice. "Emily, they found something by the lake. They need us to come down to the station right away." As I grab my keys and slip past my sleeping parents, David spots me from the driveway. "Emily, please," he calls softly. "Just talk to me." I brush past him, unable to meet his eyes. They found something, David. I have to go. His hand catches my arm, gentle but firm. I'll drive you. For a moment, I hesitate, searching his face for, what? Signs of guilt? Of innocence? Of the man I thought I knew? No, I finally say, pulling away. I'll meet Richard there. Something flashes in David's eyes at the mention of Jessica's husband. Something dark and quick. There and gone before I can identify it. Be careful around him, Em. He's not handling this well. As I drive toward the police station, David's warning echoes in my mind. Be careful around Richard? Or was that just David trying to deflect suspicion? The cabin. The ring. Jessica's undelivered warning. Richard's hollow eyes. David's perfect explanations. Somewhere in this tangled web of relationships and half-truths lies the answer to where my sister went. And I'm increasingly certain that when I find that answer, nothing in my life will ever be the same again. The something they found was Jessica's scarf, the cream cashmere one I'd given her last Christmas, snagged on branches at the edge of Lake Montgomery, 3 miles from Vista Point. Not her body, thank God, but a personal item that confirmed she'd been there, or someone with her belongings had. Richard identified it immediately, his voice breaking as he explained that she'd been wearing it the day she disappeared, despite the June heat, because the restaurant at their anniversary dinner had been overly air-conditioned. The lake discovery spawned a new search perimeter, with state police divers checking the murky waters, while volunteers combed the surrounding woods. I joined them the next morning, desperate for action, for purpose, for anything besides sitting in my childhood bedroom surrounded by ghosts. That's when Catherine Winters approached me, David's assistant from his architectural firm, a slender woman with precise movements and eyes that never quite met mine at company functions. "Mrs. Taylor," she said, finding me alone as I refilled my water bottle at the volunteer station. "I need to speak with you privately." Something in her tone made me follow her to her sensible gray sedan, parked at the edge of the search area. "I shouldn't be doing this," she said, hands trembling slightly as she retrieved a manila envelope from her glove compartment. "But your sister was kind to me once when it mattered. And I can't—" She stopped, composing herself. "I can't stay silent anymore." Inside the envelope were printed emails between David and someone using an anonymous account. The exchanges were dated over the past year, becoming more frequent in recent months. Their content made my blood run cold. "Your wife's sister is becoming a problem. She's too observant, asking questions. Handle it before the wedding, or everything falls apart." And finally, sent the morning after Jessica disappeared. "It's done. Vista Point worked perfectly. No traces." I stared at Catherine, unable to form words through the roaring in my ears. "There's more," she whispered. "Financial records, large cash withdrawals, burner phones. And I've seen him with other women, many times." "Why are you showing me this?" I finally managed. "Why not go to the police?" I did. Her eyes finally met mine, filled with a fear so genuine it couldn't be faked. "Yesterday, Detective Morrison thanked me and said they'd investigate. Then this morning, my apartment was broken into. Nothing was taken, but my backup files were accessed, and I received this." She showed me her phone, a text message with a photo of her young daughter at school, accompanied by 2 words, "Stay quiet." "David has connections in this town that you don't understand," Catherine continued, her voice barely audible. "People who protect him. I'm leaving tonight, taking my daughter somewhere safe. You deserve to know. Your sister tried to warn you." She pressed the envelope into my hands. "Be careful who you trust with this, even the police." Before I could ask more questions, she was gone, her sedan disappearing down the gravel access road. I sat in my car, hands shaking as I reread the emails. Could these be real? Could David, my David, who cried during dog food commercials and spent weekends building furniture for the local women's shelter, be capable of this? Of harming Jessica because she'd discovered something about him? My phone buzzed with a text from the anonymous number. "Catherine found you. Good. Now you understand. Cabin. Go alone." I didn't know what to do, who to trust. If Catherine was right about David having protection within local authorities, I couldn't risk going to Detective Morrison. My parents were already shattered by Jessica's disappearance. Showing them these emails would destroy what remained of their strength. That left Richard. Jessica's husband would want justice as much as I did. I called him, asked to meet somewhere private. An hour later, we sat in his and Jessica's kitchen, the happy photos of their life together watching us from every wall as he examined the emails. Jesus Christ, he whispered, face ashen. This is... Emily, we need to take this to the FBI, not local police. You believe they're real? Richard ran a hand through his disheveled hair. It explains something Jessica said a few months ago. She mentioned being concerned about some of David's business dealings. I thought she was being overprotective of you, but now... What business dealings? My husband was an architect. His firm respected throughout New England for commercial restorations. There was nothing suspicious about his work. Richard hesitated, then retrieved his laptop. Jessica started keeping notes. She was methodical that way. Once a teacher, always a teacher. She created this spreadsheet of things she found strange. The document contained dates, locations, and observations. David taking calls late at night, speaking in code. Meetings with men Jessica described as looking like they've never set foot in an architect's office. Large cash deposits in their joint account that David attributed to consulting bonuses. Jessica had been tracking it all. She never shared her suspicions with me directly, I said, the betrayal cutting deeper than I could have imagined. Why wouldn't she tell me? Richard's expression was gentle but unyielding. Because she loved you, Emily. She wanted proof before potentially ruining your relationship. The last entry was the day before your wedding. She wrote that she'd finally found concrete evidence and was going to talk to you after the reception. Evidence. The word sparked a memory. Jessica's oversized purse at the reception. How she'd kept it close, checking it periodically. Had she brought this evidence to show me? Her purse, I said suddenly. She had a large purse at the wedding. It wasn't found with her car at Vista Point. Richard's eyes widened. You're right. The police inventory didn't mention a purse. Another text from the unknown number. Taylor is moving. If you want answers, cabin now. Alone, or sister dies. I showed Richard the text, watching his face drain of color. It's a trap, he said immediately. We need to call the FBI right now. And if it's not, I countered. If Jessica is alive and being held somewhere, this person knows about our family cabin, a place few people knew existed. They know about Catherine coming to me. They might be our only link to Jessica. Then I'm coming with you, Richard insisted, already reaching for his keys. I placed my hand over his. The text says alone, Richard. If Jessica is still alive, I can't risk her life, and I can't risk losing you too, he replied, his voice breaking. Emily, think. David could be behind these texts, luring you somewhere isolated. The thought had occurred to me, but I also couldn't ignore the possibility that my sister needed me, that this might be her only chance. I'll take precautions, I promised. Track my phone location. If I don't check in hourly, call the FBI, not local police, and I'll bring Dad's old hunting rifle. Richard argued for another 20 minutes before reluctantly agreeing to my plan, his face a mask of fear and resignation. Jessica would never forgive me if anything happened to you. As I gathered supplies for the drive to the Berkshires, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was missing something important. Some connection between David, the cabin, and Jessica's disappearance that remained just beyond my comprehension. What I didn't know then, couldn't have known, was that the truth waiting at that cabin would be far worse than anything I had imagined, and that the real betrayal had only just begun. The drive to the Berkshires took 3 hours, the familiar landscape unspooling like a threadbare memory. Jessica and I had made this journey countless times in our youth, crammed in the back seat of Dad's old station wagon, singing along to his classic rock cassettes and playing I Spy until Mom threatened to leave us at the next rest stop. Jessica, 2 years younger but always more daring, the one who jumped off the high dock first, who spoke to boys at the neighboring cabin without stammering, who protected me from the summer camp bullies even though she was smaller, my fierce, loyal shadow. I remembered the summer she broke her arm falling from the old oak tree behind the cabin, how she didn't cry, not even once, as Dad raced down the mountain roads to the nearest hospital. It's okay, Emmy, she'd whispered, her face pale with pain, but her eyes steady. Don't look so scared. I'm not scared, so you don't have to be either. That was Jessica, always putting others first, always being strong so I didn't have to be. The miles dissolved beneath my tires as memories cascaded through my mind. Jessica helping me study for the SATs, quizzing me until 3 in the morning, Jessica holding my hair back after my first disastrous experience with vodka at college. Jessica rushing to my apartment after my first serious breakup, armed with ice cream and terrible rom-coms. "Men come and go, sis," she'd told me, spooning chocolate chip into my mouth as I sobbed over Chad what's-his-name. "But we're forever. Nothing will ever change that." Jessica at my engagement party, pulling me aside with champagne-bright eyes. "You deserve every happiness, Emily. I just want to make sure he's worthy of you." Even then, was she suspicious? Watching? Protecting? And then, the most painful memory of all, Jessica on my wedding day, helping me into my dress, her hands gentle as she fastened each tiny pearl button. "You look like a princess," she'd said, voice catching. "Mom would be so proud." Our mother wasn't dead, just recovering from minor surgery that left her too weak to help with dressing room duties. But we both understood what Jessica meant. Proud of us both. Of the women we'd become despite the difficulties. Dad's business failure. The years of financial struggle. The summer the cabin was sold. Our childhood paradise lost to bankruptcy proceedings. "Remember when we buried the time capsule?" I asked suddenly, watching Jessica adjust my veil in the mirror. Her hands stilled. "Under the old oak. Summer of 2005, right before we lost the place," I finished. We hadn't spoken of the cabin in years. The loss had been too painful for our entire family. "We should go back someday," Jessica said, meeting my eyes in the reflection. "Dig it up. See if it's still there." "The new owners probably cut down the tree," I said. "Built some modern monstrosity with floor-to-ceiling windows and no character." Jessica's smile turned enigmatic. "Maybe, maybe not. Some things survive against all odds, Emmy." Was she trying to tell me something even then? Had she already discovered whatever secret led her to that Vista Point lookout 3 days later? The GPS announced my arrival, pulling me back to the present. I turned onto the unmarked dirt road, branches scraping the sides of my car like grasping fingers. The familiar knot in my stomach tightened, part nostalgia, part dread. What would I find at the end of this road? Jessica? Her captor? David? Answers? The cabin appeared through the trees, and my breath caught. It looked exactly the same. The weathered gray boards, the sagging front porch, the crooked stone chimney. Even the ancient porch swing still hung from rusted chains. No modern renovation, no signs of occupation at all. And most surprising of all, the massive oak tree still stood sentinel beside it, its sprawling branches shading half the roof. I parked beside the porch, the silence of the forest wrapping around me like a familiar blanket. No other vehicles in sight, no signs of recent activity, just wilderness and memories and the heavy sense of expectation. My phone buzzed. Richard checking in. I sent a quick, "Arrived safe, all quiet. We'll update in 1 hour," before retrieving Dad's rifle from the trunk. I wasn't a great shot, but I could handle the weapon if necessary. The cabin door was unlocked. The first red flag. I pushed it open with the rifle barrel, wincing at the familiar creak of hinges that needed oiling. Inside, dust motes danced in the beams of afternoon sunlight streaming through the grimy windows. The furniture remained as we'd left it years ago, now draped in yellowed sheets like forgotten ghosts. "Hello?" I called, my voice echoing in the emptiness. "I'm here, alone, as requested." No response except the distant call of a loon on the lake. I moved through the cabin cautiously, checking each room, finding nothing but memories and mouse droppings. The kitchen with its ancient avocado refrigerator. The living room with the stone fireplace where Dad had taught us to build the perfect s'more. The small bedroom Jessica and I had shared, with its bunk beds and the wall where we'd carved our initials inside a wobbly heart. "EC+JC forever," the childish carving proclaimed. I traced the letters with my fingertip, throat tight with emotion. Somewhere outside, a twig snapped. I froze, then moved quickly to the window, peering through the dusty glass. Nothing visible in the clearing around the cabin, but the hairs on the back of my neck stood at attention. My phone buzzed again. Not Richard this time, but the anonymous number. "Oak tree, time capsule. She left it for you." The time capsule, our childhood treasure, buried beneath the tree the summer before we lost the cabin. A small tin lunchbox containing our most precious possessions. Jessica's favorite Barbie doll, my diary, candy rings we swore we'd save forever, a disposable camera filled with our summer adventures. Was this what Jessica had discovered? Had she returned here recently? I moved to the front door, scanning the perimeter before stepping onto the porch. The oak tree loomed 30 feet away, its massive trunk wider than my arms could encircle. The spot where we'd buried the time capsule would be on the far side, away from the cabin, marked by a rock with a natural quartz vein that Jessica had said looked like a lightning bolt. I approached cautiously, rifle ready, every sense alert for movement or sound. The forest remained eerily still, holding its breath along with me. The lightning rock was still there, half buried in decades of fallen leaves and pine needles. I set the rifle within reach and began to dig with my hands, fingers sinking into the soft, decomposing forest floor. 6 inches down, my nails scraped against something metal. The time capsule, our old Wonder Woman lunchbox, the red and blue paint still visible despite years underground. With trembling hands, I pulled it free and brushed away the clinging soil. The clasp was rusted but intact. I flipped it open, expecting to find our childhood treasures. Instead, I found a sealed evidence bag containing a small black notebook, a USB drive, and a current New York driver's license belonging to a woman named Eliza Montgomery, featuring a photograph of Jessica with blonde hair. Beneath these items lay a handwritten note in my sister's unmistakable cursive. "Emmy, if you're reading this, I'm either gone or in hiding. David isn't who you think he is. None of this is. I love you. Be careful. Trust no one." And below that, a second note in different handwriting. "She knew too much. Now you do too. He's coming. Run." A car engine rumbled in the distance, growing louder by the second. I grabbed the time capsule's contents and my rifle, heart pounding as I scanned my surroundings for the safest escape route. The approaching vehicle didn't sound like Richard's sensible sedan. This was something heavier, more powerful. As I backed toward the cabin, my gaze fell on the overturned soil where I'd retrieved the time capsule. A glint of white caught my attention, a small fragment of bone, partially embedded in the dirt. Human bone. Terror surged through me as the vehicle sounds grew louder, crashing through the underbrush with reckless speed. Whoever was coming wasn't bothering with stealth anymore. I ran for my car, praying I'd have time to escape before they arrived. But as I rounded the cabin, I realized I was already too late. A black SUV with tinted windows blocked the narrow access road, and a figure was stepping out. Tall, familiar, loved. "Emily," David called, his voice carrying the same concern it had in our driveway days earlier. "Thank God I found you. You're in danger, honey. We need to go now." Behind him, partially obscured by the SUV's bulk, I glimpsed a second vehicle pulling up. I clutched the evidence from the time capsule against my chest, Jessica's warning echoing in my mind. Trust no one, starting with the husband I no longer knew. "Emily, please," David said, taking a step toward me, hands outstretched. "You don't understand what's happening. You need to come with me now." I raised the rifle, aiming it squarely at his chest. "Don't come any closer." Surprise flashed across his face, quickly replaced by wounded innocence, an expression I'd seen countless times during our marriage when I questioned his late nights or unexpected business trips. The same look that had always made me doubt myself, apologize for my suspicions. It wouldn't work anymore. "Put that down before you hurt yourself," he said, his tone condescending. "You've never even fired a gun." "Actually, I have," I replied, thinking of the summers Dad had taught Jessica and me to shoot tin cans off the back fence. "And I'm a better shot than you think." The second vehicle pulled up alongside David's SUV, Richard's sedan. Relief flooded through me as Jessica's husband emerged, until I noticed the gun in his hand, not pointed at David, pointed at me. "Richard." My voice sounded small, childlike with confusion. "I'm sorry, Emily," he said, his expression genuinely regretful. "You should have listened when I told you not to come here." David sighed heavily. "This is exactly what I was trying to prevent. Put the rifle down, Em. Let's talk inside like civilized people." My mind raced, struggling to process this new reality. Richard and David, adversaries in my mind, were working together. But how? Why? "Where's my sister?" I demanded, the rifle barrel wavering slightly between the two men. "Safe," Richard answered, advancing slowly. "She'll stay that way if you cooperate." "She's alive?" Hope surged through me, momentarily overwhelming my fear. David's laugh was bitter. "Of course she's alive. Jessica's always been the survivor. Unlike you, always needing protection, guidance, someone to make your decisions." Each word struck like a physical blow. This wasn't my David, the supportive, loving man I'd married. This was someone else entirely, a stranger wearing my husband's face. "The emails," I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. "Her ring in your car. You planned to frame yourself, knowing they'd have to release you without enough evidence. But why? What is this about?" "The cabin," Richard answered, gesturing around us. Or rather, what's underneath it. "We don't have time for this," David cut in sharply. "The FBI will have tracked her phone by now. We need to move." FBI? My heart leapt. Richard had called them after all, despite his apparent betrayal. "Unless," the realization hit me like a physical blow. "You're not worried about local police because they're in your pocket, but the FBI isn't. That's why you were so concerned when I mentioned going to them." David's expression hardened. "Always smarter than you let on. Just like your sister. It's becoming irritating." "The journal and USB drive," Richard said, noticing the items clutched against my chest. "Hand them over, Emily. Not until you tell me where Jessica is." "She's at our safe house upstate," he replied. "I can take you to her after we resolve this situation." "Liar," I spat. "Jessica would never go into hiding without contacting me somehow." Richard's expression turned pitying. "She tried, Emily. The texts? The ones directing you to the cabin? That was Jessica. She's been trying to warn you for weeks." I stared at him, mind spinning. "You expect me to believe my sister has been texting me anonymously instead of just calling me? That makes no sense." "It does when you realize your phones have been monitored since the wedding," David interjected. "Every call, every text message, every app. We needed to know who Jessica had told about her discoveries. The casual way he admitted to violating my privacy, our privacy, sent ice through my veins. What discoveries? What is happening here?" David glanced at his watch impatiently. "The abbreviated version? Your family's cabin sits on land containing one of the largest untapped lithium deposits in North America. Your grandfather chose this location for a reason. He was a geologist who discovered the deposit but kept it secret, hoping to protect the land from mining interests. But then your father's business failed," Richard continued, "and the land had to be sold. Except the sale wasn't legitimate. The investment company that purchased it? A shell corporation created by David's family, using forged documentation. My family has been in the resource acquisition business for generations," David said with chilling pride. "When we identified this property as potentially valuable, we created a situation where your father would need to sell. The implication hit me like a sledgehammer. You caused Dad's financial problems? Deliberately bankrupted him?" David shrugged. "Business is business. Nothing personal." "Nothing personal?" My voice rose hysterically. "You destroyed my family's livelihood. And then I married you to ensure no one would look too closely at the property's history," he continued, as if explaining a particularly clever business strategy. "Who investigates a sale when the daughter of the original owner is happily married to the new owner's son? It was elegant, clean. Until Jessica started digging," Richard added. "She never trusted David. Started researching his family, the property sale, everything. She found documentation proving the sale was fraudulent, that your family still legally owns this land, which is worth billions now that the world is transitioning to electric vehicles," David finished. "Lithium is the new oil, Emily, and your family is sitting on an ocean of it." I felt sick, memories flooding back. Jessica's increasing concern about David over the past year, her insistence on handling Dad's old business documents during spring cleaning, her strange questions about our grandfather. "So my entire marriage was a fraud," I said, the words tasting like ash. "Every kiss, every promise, every moment, all to secure a mining claim?" David had the grace to look slightly uncomfortable. "Initially, yes, but I grew to care for you, Emily. You're a good wife, trusting, supportive. We could still have a good life together if you'd just cooperate now." "By cooperating, you mean what? Forgetting that you kidnapped my sister? Pretending you didn't destroy my father's business? Ignoring that everything between us has been a lie?" "By signing these," Richard said, pulling folded documents from his jacket. "Quitclaim deeds relinquishing any interest your family might still have in this property. Jessica has already signed hers. Once you sign yours, this all goes away. She comes home. Life returns to normal." "Normal?" I laughed, the sound bordering on hysterical. "You think anything could ever be normal again? It's just business. David repeated, his patience visibly thinning. No one needs to get hurt. Your sister made things complicated, but we can still resolve this cleanly. I looked between them, my husband and my brother-in-law, united in deception, treating me like a naive child who needed to be managed. Anger replaced shock, burning away my fear. "Where is my sister?" I demanded again. The real answer this time. The men exchanged glances. Richard nodded slightly. "In the root cellar," David admitted. "Below the cabin. She's unharmed, just contained while we negotiate." The root cellar, a small dank space beneath the kitchen where we'd stored potatoes and preserves during summer visits. The thought of Jessica trapped in that darkness for days made my blood boil. "The key," I said, managing to keep my voice steady. "Get it. After you sign," Richard countered. "The key first. I need to see her before I sign anything." Another exchange of glances. David nodded. "Fine, but the rifle stays outside, and I keep the evidence you found." I hesitated, then slowly lowered the weapon. Deal. What they didn't know was that I'd already memorized the key information from Jessica's notebook. Account numbers, dates, names of shell corporations. And I'd slipped the USB drive into my sock while they were focused on the rifle. As David took the gun and Richard collected the notebook, I mentally calculated the odds. 2 armed men versus 1 unarmed woman. Jessica potentially injured or restrained in the root cellar. The FBI possibly on their way, if Richard had actually called them. My chances weren't good, but Jessica had risked everything to uncover the truth and warn me. I wouldn't let her down now. David led the way into the cabin, Richard following close behind me. The floorboards creaked beneath our feet as we moved through the dusty living room toward the kitchen, where the trapdoor to the root cellar lay hidden beneath a faded rug. "You've both made a terrible mistake," I said quietly, as David pulled back the rug to reveal the trapdoor. "Jessica and I aren't the helpless women you think we are." "No one thinks you're helpless, Emily," Richard replied, his gun still trained casually in my direction. "Just outnumbered and outmaneuvered." David knelt to unlock the trapdoor, his back temporarily turned to me. "This would all have been so much simpler if you'd just trusted me. We could have had a good life together." As the trapdoor swung open, revealing the dark space below, a familiar voice called up from the shadows. "Emily, is that you?" Jessica's voice, weak but alive. Tears sprang to my eyes. "It's me, Jess. I'm here." Before David could react, a deafening gunshot rang out from below, and he collapsed forward, crying out in pain and surprise. Richard swore, swinging his weapon toward the open trapdoor. But I was already moving, shoulder-checking him with all my strength, sending him staggering backward into the counter. From the cellar opening, Jessica emerged like an avenging spirit, dirt-streaked and wild-eyed, a small pistol clutched in her trembling hands. "You okay, big sister?" she asked, her voice hoarse but determined. I nodded, unable to speak through the tightness in my throat. "Good," she said, training her weapon on Richard, who had frozen in place. "Because we have unfinished business with these bastards." The 4 of us remained frozen in a tableau of betrayal and revelation, David moaning on the floor, clutching his bleeding leg. Richard backed against the kitchen counter, his weapon lowered but not discarded. Jessica standing halfway out of the cellar, her small pistol unwavering despite her obvious exhaustion. And me, caught between them all, my world shattered but my mind suddenly, crystallinely clear. "Drop the gun, Richard," Jessica ordered, her teacher voice emerging through the grime and fatigue. "Now." He hesitated, calculating odds I could read on his face. 2 against 1. But Jessica had already demonstrated her willingness to shoot. "She won't miss next time," I added quietly. "And neither will I." His eyes flicked to mine, perhaps recognizing something new there. A hardness, a resolve that hadn't existed before. Slowly he placed his gun on the counter and raised his hands. "Emily," David groaned from the floor. "She shot me. Your sister shot me. You're lucky that's all she did," I replied, feeling nothing for the man I'd once pledged my life to. Not anger, not hatred, not love, just nothing. Like looking at a stranger who'd borrowed my husband's face. I moved to Jessica, helping her fully out of the cellar. She was filthy, her clothes torn, her face gaunt from days without proper food or water, but her eyes burned with fierce determination. "You came," she whispered, leaning heavily against me. "Always," I replied, the simple exchange encompassing a lifetime of sisterhood. "Are you hurt?" "Nothing serious." Dehydrated, hungry. She glared at Richard, disappointed in my taste in men. Despite everything, I found myself laughing, a small, broken sound that somehow made breathing easier. Join the club. Jessica's pistol remained trained on the men as I retrieved Richard's discarded weapon. The familiar weight in my hand felt both foreign and necessary, like a language I'd learned as a child and suddenly needed to speak again. We should tie them up, Jessica suggested, eyeing the bleeding David warily. That gunshot will have been heard if anyone's nearby. No one's nearby, Richard said. This entire area is private property now. David's family owns 5 square miles surrounding this cabin. Not legally, Jessica countered. The property sale was fraudulent. I have proof. I thought of the USB drive hidden in my sock, the notebook information committed to memory. So do I. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Richard's face. Whatever you think you have, it won't matter. The Taylors have resources you can't imagine. Connections. Lawyers who can bury evidence and witnesses. Is that what happened to Catherine? I asked, remembering David's assistant and her terrified eyes. David laughed weakly from the floor. Catherine is fine. Enjoying a paid vacation with her daughter in the Caymans. Money solves most problems, Emily. Not this one, Jessica said grimly. You underestimated us. Both of you did. I looked at my sister. My brave, clever sister who'd survived days in that dark cellar. Who'd somehow managed to retain a weapon they didn't know about. Who'd spent the past year methodically gathering evidence while pretending everything was normal. Who'd texted me clues while captive, assuming correctly that I'd understand and come. And I thought about myself, the woman who'd lived in blissful ignorance, who'd believed in her perfect marriage, who'd dismissed her sister's concerns as overprotectiveness, the woman these men had seen as malleable, naive, easily controlled. That woman no longer existed. In her place stood someone new, someone forged in the crucible of betrayal, tempered by truth, strengthened by righteous anger. What's your plan? I asked Jessica softly. We can't stay here indefinitely. The FBI, she replied. I managed to send them documentation before these two grabbed me at Vista Point. They should have been investigating already. They are, Richard admitted reluctantly, but they're looking in the wrong places. We made sure of that. Not anymore, I said, pulling my phone from my pocket. Richard gave me the idea, actually. He suggested I share my location with him in case something happened to me at the cabin, but I shared it with someone else too. David's face paled. Who? Detective Morrison, I replied, watching the confidence drain from my husband's expression. He may be local police, but he never stopped believing you were involved in Jessica's disappearance. He's been building a case independently, coordinating with the FBI. They'll have my location by now. As if summoned by my words, the distant sound of helicopter rotors cut through the cabin's musty air. Richard lunged for the counter, reaching for his discarded weapon, but Jessica was faster. Her second bullet grazed his arm, sending him stumbling backward with a howl of pain. Next one goes through your kneecap, she promised, her voice deadly calm. Sit down and shut up. Clutching his bleeding arm, Richard sank to the floor beside David, his face a mask of hatred and defeat. I moved to the cabin window, watching as a black helicopter appeared over the tree line, circling once before hovering above the clearing. Within minutes, vehicles began arriving. SUVs with federal markings, local police cruisers, an ambulance. They're here, I told Jessica, relief washing through me. It's over. She lowered her pistol slightly, exhaustion finally claiming its toll as she swayed on her feet. I moved to support her, wrapping my arm around her waist. Not quite over, she murmured, but beginning to end. As agents in tactical gear poured into the cabin, securing David and Richard and ushering us outside to the waiting medical personnel, I felt a strange sense of awakening, as if I'd been sleepwalking through my entire marriage and had finally opened my eyes to reality. The agent who wrapped a shock blanket around my shoulders was saying something about safe houses and witness protection, about the Taylor family's extensive criminal enterprises and connections to international mining cartels, about years of investigations suddenly accelerated by our evidence. But I wasn't really listening. I was watching Jessica, seated in the back of the ambulance, allowing the paramedics to clean a nasty gash on her forehead while she spoke animatedly to a female agent taking notes. My little sister, who had always been the brave one, who had sacrificed her safety to protect me from the truth until she could prove it beyond doubt, who had survived days of captivity while still finding ways to guide me to the evidence that would free her. Detective Morrison approached, his face solemn, but his eyes kind. Mrs. Taylor, Collins, I corrected automatically. Emily Collins. I won't be keeping his name. He nodded, understanding. Ms. Collins, then. We'll need your statement when you're ready, and the evidence you mentioned in your texts. I reached down, retrieving the USB drive from my sock. Everything Jessica gathered is here. Names, dates, account numbers, forged documents. The lithium deposit under the property is just the beginning. David's family, the Taylors, have been orchestrating similar schemes for generations. Morrison pocketed the drive carefully. We've been investigating them for years, but could never get enough evidence to move against them. Your sister changed that. She always was the smart one, I said, watching as Jessica finally allowed herself to be laid on a stretcher, her energy reserves depleted. Don't sell yourself short, Morrison replied. Coming here alone was reckless, but brave. You both have that Collins backbone. The description surprised me. No one had ever compared me to Jessica in terms of courage or resilience. I'd always been the sensible one, the careful one, the responsible one. Diplomatic ways of saying I was risk-averse, conventional, predictable, but I didn't feel predictable anymore. I felt awake, alert, as if a lifetime of seeing the world through gauze had suddenly given way to perfect clarity. I walked over to the ambulance where Jessica was being treated, climbing in to sit beside her stretcher as they prepared to transport her to the hospital. Her hand found mine, squeezing weakly. I tried to tell you, she whispered, at the wedding, but they were watching too closely. I know, I replied, stroking her tangled hair away from her face. I'm sorry I didn't listen sooner, that I doubted you. Her cracked lips curved in a faint smile. You came when it mattered. You always do, eventually. As the ambulance doors closed, sealing us in antiseptic quiet, I watched through the small window as agents led David and Richard to separate vehicles, handcuffed and defeated. My husband, soon-to-be ex-husband, didn't look back, didn't try to catch a final glimpse of me. The facade had fallen completely now. There was no need to pretend affection that had never existed. What happens now? I asked, unsure if I was speaking to Jessica or myself. She squeezed my hand again, her eyes drifting closed with exhaustion. Now we rebuild, together, the way we always have. And as the ambulance pulled away from the cabin that had been both the source and salvation of our family's troubles, I felt something unexpected bloom within me. Not just anger or grief or betrayal, but something stranger and more powerful. Freedom. The liberation of seeing clearly for the first time. The strength that comes from surviving deception and emerging stronger. My marriage had been a carefully constructed lie. My life for the past 4 years had been built on a foundation of manipulation and deceit. Everything I thought I knew about love and trust had been systematically undermined. But here, in the aftermath of catastrophe, I found myself not destroyed, but transformed. The Emily who had walked into that cabin no longer existed. In her place was someone new, someone who would never again mistake control for care, possession for love, or silence for peace. Someone who, like Jessica, would no longer be underestimated. 3 months after the cabin confrontation, I sat in a sterile federal building in Boston, signing the final paperwork that would formalize our cooperation in the case against the Taylor family criminal enterprise. Across the table, Special Agent Diane Hernandez watched me with a mixture of professional distance and reluctant admiration. With your testimony and the evidence your sister compiled, we're looking at multiple life sentences for David Taylor and his father, she said, as I handed back the thick stack of documents. The lithium mining conspiracy alone involves fraud, racketeering, extortion, attempted murder, and actual murder, I reminded her quietly. The bones we found at the cabin. Agent Hernandez nodded, her expression grim. Forensics confirmed they belonged to Martin Graves, the county assessor who initially questioned the property transfer 15 years ago. We've linked his disappearance directly to Charles Taylor, David's father. I absorbed this information with a strange detachment. In the past months, each new revelation about the family I'd married into had shocked me less and less. The environmental crimes in South America, the bribed officials across 3 continents, the indigenous communities displaced through violence and intimidation, the competitors who suffered accidents. At some point, horror had given way to a cold, clear-eyed understanding of exactly who these people were. What about Richard? I asked. though Jessica had specifically requested I not discuss her soon-to-be ex-husband during our weekly calls. She was healing in her own way, on her own terms. Cooperating fully, Hernandez replied. Turns out he was a relatively recent recruit to their operation. The Taylors approached him shortly after he and Jessica married, leveraging some gambling debts and offering financial incentives to keep an eye on her when she started asking questions about your family's old property. The timing aligned with what Jessica had told me, how Richard had suddenly encouraged her to let go of her suspicions about David, how he'd become increasingly controlling about her research into our grandfather's history. He claims he didn't know they planned to abduct her, Hernandez continued, just that they wanted to scare her into silence. Whether a jury believes that is another matter. I didn't particularly care what happened to Richard. My capacity for emotional investment in men who betrayed my family had been thoroughly exhausted. And the property? I asked, changing the subject to what really mattered. Hernandez allowed herself a small smile. As of this morning, ownership has been officially restored to the Collins Family Trust. Your father received the documentation yesterday. This news, unlike the criminal revelations, hit me with full emotional force. Dad had wept when we first told him about the lithium deposit, about how Grandpa Collins had known of its existence but chosen to keep it secret to protect the land he loved, about how the Taylors had orchestrated his financial ruin specifically to acquire the property through their shell corporation. The mineral rights alone are worth— I know what they're worth, I interrupted. The astronomical figures had been detailed in multiple briefings, each estimate more staggering than the last. Billions, potentially. Enough to transform my modest family into one of the wealthiest in the country. Except wealth had never been what drove us. Not Grandpa, who'd kept the lithium secret to preserve the forest he cherished. Not Dad, who'd built his small business focused on employee welfare rather than maximizing profits. Not Jessica, who'd chosen teaching kindergarten over more lucrative careers. Not me, though I was still discovering who exactly me was in this post-David existence. We're establishing a conservation trust, I explained, pulling a folder from my bag containing the preliminary paperwork our new legal team had prepared. The land will be protected from development permanently, with limited, environmentally responsible extraction of the lithium under strict oversight. The majority of the proceeds will fund renewable energy research and community development. Hernandez raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised. Most people, faced with sudden astronomical wealth, didn't immediately establish frameworks to give most of it away. But most people hadn't seen firsthand what the pursuit of wealth at all costs had done to the Taylors. Hollowed them out until they were capable of destroying lives without remorse, of seeing people as mere obstacles to acquisition. That's unusually altruistic, she finally commented. I shrugged. It's what my grandfather would have wanted, and after everything that's happened, I think my family just wants to put things right. As I left the federal building, the late October sun cast long shadows across the Boston streets. I pulled my coat tighter against the autumn chill, feeling strangely light despite the weight of the morning's discussions. My phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. Done with your meeting? I'm at the cafe across from the Common. Big news. 20 minutes later, I spotted her at an outdoor table, her face tilted toward the sun, looking more like herself than she had in months. The gaunt hollowness had filled out, and she'd cut her hair into a stylish bob that made her look simultaneously younger and more serious. So? She asked as I sat down, sliding a cappuccino toward me. How did it go? As expected. Final paperwork filed. Prosecution moving forward. Property officially returned to the family trust. I took a sip of the coffee. Perfect as always. Jessica never forgot how I liked things. Your ex-husband is singing like a canary, apparently. She flinched slightly at the mention of Richard, but quickly recovered. Good. He should be. Though I'm still struggling to understand how I could have been so wrong about him. Join the club, I replied, our shared dark humor about our disastrous marriages having become a coping mechanism. At least yours was only working for the criminal enterprise. Mine was the heir apparent. True. You definitely win the worst husband competition. Her smile faded into something more serious. But that's actually related to my news. I've been offered a book deal about the whole experience, the investigation, the abduction, the family's crimes. A major publisher wants me to tell our story. I stared at her, momentarily speechless. Jess, are you sure? It would mean reliving everything. Having the whole world know our business. The whole world already knows our business, she pointed out. We've been in the papers for months. Sisters uncover billion-dollar mining conspiracy. Architect heir arrested in kidnapping plot. At least this way, we control the narrative. She had a point. The media coverage had been relentless, particularly after the scope of the Taylors' crimes became public knowledge. Most of it had been invasive, sensationalized, focused on the salacious aspects rather than the environmental and human costs of their actions. Besides, Jessica continued, the advance is substantial. I'm donating most of it to domestic violence organizations, but keeping enough to start over somewhere new. She hesitated. Actually, that's the other thing I wanted to discuss. I'm moving to Seattle next month. Fresh start, away from the East Coast and all these memories. The news hit me harder than I'd expected. Since the cabin confrontation, Jessica and I had been in near constant contact, supporting each other through the legal proceedings, the divorce filings, the media onslaught, the family healing. The thought of her across the country created a hollow feeling in my chest. That's great, I managed, trying to sound supportive. Seattle is supposed to be beautiful. Jessica reached across the table, taking my hand. Come with me. I blinked. What? Come with me to Seattle, she repeated. You need a fresh start too, Em. There's nothing holding you here except painful memories and federal depositions, which you can fly back for when needed. The suggestion caught me off guard. I'd been so focused on getting through each day, each legal proceeding, each awkward family dinner where we all pretended we weren't still processing our collective trauma, that I hadn't thought much about what came next. I have my job, I said weakly, though in truth, I'd been on leave from the Historical Society for months and had little interest in returning. A job you've outgrown, Jessica replied, with the blunt honesty that was her trademark. Em, you're not the same person you were before all this happened. None of us are, but you've changed the most. What does that mean? She squeezed my hand. It means you found your voice, your strength. I watched you stand up to David and Richard at the cabin, face down Taylor family attorneys who tried to intimidate us into dropping charges, handle the media with grace when they ambushed you outside the courthouse. The old Emily would have crumbled. This Emily? She's a force. I felt my cheeks warm at her assessment. I was just doing what needed to be done. Exactly. And you did it brilliantly. Jessica leaned forward, her expression earnest. The publishers want your input on the book too. Your perspective. And I've been talking to some environmental law firms in Seattle that would kill to have someone with your insight into resource exploitation cases. I'm not a lawyer, I protested. No, but you have firsthand knowledge of how these corporations operate, how they hide their activities, how they pressure and manipulate. That's valuable. Her eyes sparkled with an enthusiasm I hadn't seen since before the abduction. Plus, the Conservation Trust will need representation on the West Coast if we're going to make it a national initiative. The idea sparked something inside me, a sense of purpose that had been missing since my carefully planned life imploded. I'd spent the past months reactively addressing crises, testifying, supporting my family through the aftermath. The thought of channeling all that experience into something proactive, something that might prevent other families from suffering similar fates, was undeniably appealing. I'd need time to think about it, I said finally. To talk to Mom and Dad. Of course. Jessica sat back, looking pleased despite my non-committal response. But don't think too long. The firm wants an answer by next week, and I've already found the perfect 2-bedroom apartment with a view of Puget Sound. I laughed, despite myself. You've already started planning as if I said yes. Because I know my sister, she replied with a confidence that warmed me. And I know that when Emily Collins sees a path forward that aligns with her values, she takes it. As we finished our coffee, discussing the logistics of potential cross-country moves and shared apartments, I realized Jessica was right. I had changed fundamentally. The woman who had driven to that cabin 3 months ago, frightened but determined, clinging to the last threads of a life built on lies, had emerged transformed, not just by trauma or disillusionment, but by the discovery of my own capacity for courage, for clear-sightedness, for righteous anger and calculated action. David had chosen me because he thought I was malleable, easily controlled, too trusting to question his narrative. He'd seen me as the perfect cover for his family's crimes, precisely because I appeared to be someone who would never pose a threat. His mistake, his fatal miscalculation, was failing to recognize what Jessica had always known. that beneath my accommodating exterior lived a woman of principle who, when pushed far enough, would not bend or break but stand immovable. As Jessica and I walked through Boston Common, the autumn leaves crunching beneath our boots, I felt that immovability within me, a solid core of certainty that whatever came next, I would face it clear-eyed and unflinching. The Collins sisters were no longer victims or pawns. We were architects of our own restoration, reclaiming not just our family's stolen property, but our power to shape what came next. And for the first time since finding Jessica's ring in David's car, I felt something close to gratitude for the painful revelations that had led us here, to this moment of possibility, of reinvention, of freedom. Seattle greeted us with a week of relentless rain that seemed fitting for our new beginning, a cleansing deluge washing away the remnants of our old lives. Our apartment in Capitol Hill, with its unexpectedly stunning views of Puget Sound on clear days, slowly transformed from an empty shell into a home as we unpacked boxes and arranged furniture. No wedding gifts, Jessica had declared firmly when we signed the lease. Nothing from before. Clean slate. So we donated or stored most of our possessions, and bought new, simple, functional items without the weight of memory attached to them. No monogram towels from my bridal shower. No anniversary gifts from Richard. Nothing that whispered of the men who had betrayed us. My position at Evergreen Environmental Justice Initiative began 3 weeks after our move. The small but powerful nonprofit specialized in supporting communities affected by resource extraction and corporate environmental abuses. Exactly the kind of organization that might have helped our family had it existed 15 years ago when the Taylors targeted our cabin property. My role was officially listed as Corporate Accountability Researcher, though my actual work encompassed far more. I spent my days analyzing patterns of land acquisition by mining conglomerates, identifying vulnerable properties and communities, and developing early warning systems to alert landowners to suspicious approaches. "You have a unique perspective," my boss, Carmen Rodriguez, had explained during my interview. "You understand how these operations work from the inside, not just the legal mechanisms but the psychological manipulation they employ." She wasn't wrong. I'd lived that manipulation, breathed it, slept beside it for years without recognition. Now I could identify the warning signs with disturbing clarity. 6 months into our Seattle reinvention, Jessica's book was nearing completion, and she'd started teaching again at an elementary school 10 blocks from our apartment. We'd established routines, made tentative friendships, learned the geography of our new city. We called home weekly, checking in on Mom and Dad, who were adjusting to their unexpected financial security while working with conservationists to develop the sustainable extraction plan for our property. Life was settling into something resembling normalcy, until the evening Carmen called me into her office after hours, her expression unusually grave. "Close the door, Emily," she instructed, gesturing to the chair across from her desk. "Something's come up that I think you should see." She turned her monitor toward me, displaying a series of property records for large tracts of land in northern Idaho. These parcels have been acquired over the past 18 months by various LLCs. On the surface, nothing unusual, just typical corporate land purchases. But when our data team mapped the acquisitions, she clicked to a new screen showing a satellite view with property boundaries outlined in red, forming a nearly continuous block of land surrounding a small rural community. "This is Pinecrest," Carmen explained. "Population 1,200. The surrounding forests contain old-growth timber, but more importantly, preliminary geological surveys suggest significant lithium deposits in the underlying bedrock." My stomach tightened. "And someone's systematically buying up the land around the town." "Exactly. Using the same pattern of multiple shell companies that we've seen before. But here's where it gets interesting." She clicked to another screen showing a corporate registration document. "The parent company behind all these LLCs is Meridian Resources Group." "I don't recognize the name," I admitted. "You wouldn't. It was incorporated just 14 months ago in Delaware." Carmen's eyes met mine. "By Marcus Benson." The name hit me like a physical blow. "David's lawyer?" She nodded grimly. "The same attorney who represented your husband during the initial investigation. And guess who's listed as Meridian's chief strategic consultant? I didn't need to see the document to know. Charles Taylor, David's father himself, released on bail 6 weeks ago pending his trial. Cold dread settled in my stomach. Charles Taylor had been the patriarch of the family's criminal enterprises, the architect of countless similar schemes across 3 continents. The man who had ordered the murder of County Assessor Martin Graves and buried his body near our cabin, who had orchestrated my father's financial ruin to acquire our property. "They're starting over," I said quietly, the realization crystallizing with terrible clarity. Using a new corporate entity, targeting a new community, but employing the same playbook. Carmen nodded. "We think so. And since neither Taylor has been convicted yet, technically they're not prohibited from engaging in business activities. What about their bail conditions? Carefully constructed to allow this exact scenario. They can't leave the country or contact witnesses in their pending cases. Nothing prevents them from forming new companies or acquiring property." Her expression hardened. "They've learned from their mistakes with your family. This time, they're keeping everything technically legal, so far." I stared at the satellite image of Pinecrest, a town I'd never visited filled with people I'd never met, all unwittingly in the crosshairs of predators I knew intimately. People who would destroy their lives, their community, their environment in the relentless pursuit of lithium, deposits that would make the Taylors even wealthier. "We need to warn them," I said, already reaching for my phone. Carmen raised a hand. "That's exactly why I called you in. We can't just make accusations without proof. The Taylors would sue us into oblivion, and the residents might not believe us anyway. Remember, these operators are charming, persuasive. They don't show up twirling villainous mustaches." I knew that better than anyone. David's smile, his thoughtful gifts, his apparent devotion, all carefully calculated to create the perfect cover for his family's activities. How many Pinecrest residents were already falling under a similar spell? "So what do we do?" I asked, frustration edging my voice. Carmen leaned back, studying me. "We need someone who understands their methodology to go to Pinecrest. Someone who can recognize the signs, gather evidence of what they're planning, and help the community protect itself, without tipping our hand too early." Understanding dawned. "You want me to go to Idaho? You're uniquely qualified, Emily. You've seen their operation from the inside. You know what to look for, what questions to ask." She hesitated. "But I need to be clear. This isn't an official evergreen assignment. Too risky for the organization if the Taylors realized we were investigating them. This would be independent research, off the books." The implications were clear. No organizational backup, no legal protection. Just me, inserting myself into the Taylors' new hunting ground, trying to gather evidence before they realized who I was or why I was there. "I'll need to think about it," I said finally. "Talk to Jessica." Carmen nodded. "Of course, but don't take too long. According to our sources, Meridian is hosting a community meeting in Pinecrest next Tuesday to discuss economic development opportunities. Once they've established themselves publicly, it becomes much harder to counter their narrative. That night, I laid out everything for Jessica over takeout Thai food in our apartment, watching her expression shift from shock to anger to grim determination. "You have to go," she said finally, setting down her chopsticks. "We can't let them do to Pinecrest what they did to us." "It could be dangerous," I countered, though I'd already begun mentally packing. "If they recognize me, they won't expect you," Jessica interrupted. "That's your advantage. David and his father are arrogant, remember? In their minds, they've already neutralized the Collins sisters. We're thousands of miles away, busy with our new lives. They won't be looking for you in some random Idaho town." She was right about their arrogance. Throughout the investigation, David had maintained an air of incredulous entitlement, as if the very idea that he might face consequences was an affront to the natural order. "Besides," Jessica continued, "you won't be alone. I'm coming with you." "Jess, no. Your book deadline is flexible. My editor will understand." Her expression softened. We started this together. We'll finish it together. The Collins sisters against the Taylor Empire. Round 2. I looked at my sister, still the brave one, still the one pushing me beyond my comfort zone, and felt a surge of love so powerful it nearly overwhelmed me. "Okay, but we do this smart. No confrontations. We're just there to gather evidence. Warn the community if possible. Then get out." "Agreed." Jessica's smile turned predatory, though I wouldn't mind seeing Charles Taylor's face when he realizes his new scheme is collapsing before it starts. 3 days later, we landed in Spokane, Washington, rented a nondescript sedan, and drove the winding road to Pinecrest, Idaho. The town nestled in a picturesque valley surrounded by pine-covered mountains, strikingly similar to the landscape around our family cabin. No wonder the Taylors had targeted it. We'd constructed careful cover identities. Me as a freelance environmental consultant researching sustainable development, Jessica as a writer working on a book about small-town America. Close enough to our real professions to be convincing, vague enough to explain our questions without raising suspicion. The Pine and Hearth Inn, Pinecrest's only accommodation, welcomed us with rustic charm and homemade cookies at check-in. The proprietor, Maggie Wheeler, was a fountain of local information as she showed us to our room. "You ladies picked an interesting time to visit," she remarked, handing over the old-fashioned metal key. "Town's all abuzz about this development company that's been buying up properties, having some big presentation at the community center on Tuesday." Jessica and I exchanged glances. "Oh? What kind of development?" I asked casually. Maggie shrugged. "They're being mysterious about specifics, but promising jobs, infrastructure improvements, the works. Some folks are excited, others suspicious. You know how it goes with change in small towns." "We'd love to attend the meeting," Jessica said, "for my book research. Would that be possible?" "It's open to the public," Maggie replied, "though I hear they've been having private meetings with key landowners for weeks. Very hush-hush, just as the Taylors had done in Oak Ridge, identifying influential community members, cultivating them individually before the public push." My skin crawled with déjà vu. "Any chance you know which landowners?" I asked, trying to sound merely curious. "I'd be interested in the environmental aspects of whatever they're planning." Maggie leaned closer, clearly enjoying the gossip. "Well, Mayor Thornton for one. His family owns the old mill property at the edge of town. The Hansons, who have that big ranch north of here. And Dr. Reeves, though I don't know why they'd be interested in his little medical practice." I filed away the names, already planning how to approach them discreetly. If the Taylors were following their usual playbook, these would be people either already compromised or specifically targeted for manipulation. "Thanks for the information," I said warmly. "We'll definitely check out the meeting." After Maggie left, Jessica and I unpacked quickly, then spread our research materials across the bed. Property records Carmen had provided, satellite maps of the area, public information about Pinecrest's key landowners. "We have 4 days until the community meeting," I said, outlining our strategy. "We need to establish ourselves in town, make connections, figure out exactly how far along the Taylors' plan has progressed." Jessica nodded, already typing names into her laptop. "I'll focus on background research, social connections. You handle the environmental and property angle since that's your expertise. And we need to locate their local operation," I added. "Meridian must have representatives here, people doing the groundwork, probably staying at this inn or a rental property." "Leave that to me," Jessica said with a grim smile. "I've gotten pretty good at spotting Taylor operatives." We worked late into the night, developing our approach, identifying potential allies, mapping out contingencies. It felt strangely familiar, the two of us planning together, combining our strengths against a common adversary. But where our previous encounter with the Taylors had been reactive, desperate, this time we were prepared, strategic, proactive. I couldn't help but appreciate the symmetry. The Taylors had targeted our family because of what lay beneath our property. Now we were targeting them because of what lay beneath their operation. The greed, the manipulation, the disregard for lives they destroyed. As I finally drifted toward sleep, I thought about how different this Emily was from the woman who had driven to the family cabin that day, frightened but determined. That Emily had been fighting to discover the truth. This Emily already knew the truth, and was fighting to use it as a weapon against those who had weaponized lies for generations. It wasn't revenge, exactly. Revenge would have been simpler, more direct. This was something more complex, a reckoning, a rebalancing of scales that had been tilted against ordinary people for too long. The Taylors had taught me how vulnerable communities could be destroyed from within. Now I would use that knowledge to ensure Pinecrest didn't share my family's fate. And if in the process, I helped bring down the remaining pillars of the Taylor Empire, I could live with that collateral damage quite comfortably. The Pinecrest Community Center was already packed when Jessica and I arrived for Meridian Resources' presentation. We'd spent our 4 days in town strategically, me meeting with local environmental groups and concerned landowners, Jessica befriending shopkeepers and gathering gossip about Meridian's quiet infiltration of the community. We'd confirmed our suspicions. Charles Taylor was orchestrating another acquisition scheme, this time with even more finesse and legal cover than before. Their local representatives, a polished team led by a charismatic woman named Victoria Reed, had been laying groundwork for months, identifying pressure points in the community, cultivating relationships with key decision-makers. Mayor Thornton had already signed a preliminary agreement, granting Meridian development rights on his family's old mill property. Dr. Reeves had been offered a suspiciously generous health center endowment that would resolve his considerable gambling debts that had mysteriously come to light just as Meridian appeared in town. The Hanson Ranch was being squeezed through suddenly restrictive water rights regulations that hadn't been enforced in decades. It was the Taylor playbook executed flawlessly. Find vulnerabilities, apply pressure, offer solutions that ultimately served their interests while appearing benevolent. But we'd been busy too. Anonymous information packets had been delivered to targeted landowners, detailing similar operations in other communities and the devastating aftermath. I'd connected local environmental advocates with regional indigenous leaders who had fought the Taylors in previous incarnations. Jessica had quietly recorded conversations with Meridian representatives who, believing her to be a sympathetic writer, had been more candid than prudent about their true intentions for Pinecrest. Most importantly, we'd identified our strongest potential ally, Eleanor Blackwood, the town's librarian and fifth-generation Pinecrest resident, whose family owned a critical parcel of land that connected several of Meridian's acquisitions. Smart, skeptical, and fiercely protective of her community, Eleanor had listened to our carefully edited version of the Taylors' history and immediately grasped the implications. They need my land for access, she'd realized, studying the property maps we'd brought to her living room. Without it, their parcels are fragmented, less valuable for large-scale operations. Exactly, I'd confirmed. They'll approach you soon, if they haven't already. Probably with some irresistible offer designed specifically for you. Eleanor's eyes had narrowed. They sent someone last week, offered to digitize the library's entire local history collection, fund a new community archive in my family's name, said they'd need a right-of-way easement across my property as part of the project. Just a formality. Jessica and I had exchanged knowing glances. It was happening exactly as we'd predicted. Now, seated near the back of the community center, we watched Victoria Reed take the podium, her tailored suit and confident smile projecting trustworthiness and competence. Behind her, a sleek presentation displayed Meridian's logo over idyllic images of Pinecrest. "Good evening, friends," she began, her voice warm with practiced sincerity. "Thank you for welcoming Meridian Resources into your beautiful community. We're excited to share our vision for Pinecrest's future, a future of sustainable growth, economic opportunity, and environmental stewardship." I almost admired the performance. Victoria was good, better than David had been in his community presentations in Oak Ridge. No wonder Charles had chosen her as the face of this operation. The presentation unfolded with polished precision, carefully worded promises of job creation, infrastructure improvements, and environmental protections. Architectural renderings showed tasteful developments that complemented Pinecrest's rustic charm. Economic projections promised prosperity without sacrificing the town's character. It was compelling, seductive, and entirely misleading. The proposed artisanal marketplace would require demolishing historic buildings along Main Street. The ecotourism lodges would necessitate new access roads through previously untouched forest. The light industrial zone was strategically positioned directly above the lithium deposits their geological surveys had identified. Not once did Victoria mention lithium, mining, or resource extraction. Those would come later, after contracts were signed, after Meridian controlled enough property to make opposition futile. As the presentation concluded, and Victoria invited questions, I felt Jessica tense beside me. We'd agreed to maintain our cover, to avoid direct confrontation. But the atmosphere in the room, the mixture of excitement and unease, the palpable vulnerability of people being methodically deceived, was clearly affecting her. "We stick to the plan," I whispered, squeezing her hand. "Eleanor's got this." On cue, Eleanor Blackwood rose from her seat near the front, a folder clutched in her hands. "Ms. Reed, I have some questions about Meridian's parent company and previous development projects." Victoria's smile never faltered, Of course, Ms. Blackwood. Though I should clarify that Meridian is an independent entity, not a subsidiary. That's interesting, Eleanor replied, her librarian's voice carrying clearly through the room. Because my research indicates Meridian Resources Group was established 14 months ago by Marcus Benson, the attorney for Charles Taylor, who is currently awaiting trial for fraud, racketeering, and conspiracy related to similar development schemes in multiple communities. A murmur rippled through the audience. Victoria's smile tightened fractionally. I'm not familiar with those details, but I assure you, Meridian operates with the highest ethical standards. I have here, Eleanor continued, unfolding a document, corporate registration filings showing Charles Taylor as Meridian's strategic consultant. The same Charles Taylor who orchestrated the fraudulent acquisition of property in Oak Ridge, Connecticut, through environmental contamination, financial sabotage, and intimidation of landowners. The murmurs grew louder. Victoria glanced off stage, where a man in an expensive suit, one I didn't recognize from our research, stepped forward and whispered urgently in her ear. Ms. Blackwood, Victoria said, her composure slipping slightly. These are serious allegations that appear to be based on misunderstood information. I also have preliminary geological surveys, Eleanor pressed on, holding up another document, commissioned by Meridian 3 months ago, identifying significant lithium deposits beneath Pinecrest. Interesting that your presentation mentioned nothing about mining operations. The room erupted in confused conversation. Mayor Thornton stood up, red-faced. Is this true? Are you planning to mine here? Victoria attempted damage control, her voice raised above the growing chaos. Friends, please. These are complicated matters being presented without context. Yes, we've conducted standard geological surveys, but any resource development would be done sustainably, with community input. Like in Guatemala? Eleanor interrupted, relentless, where Charles Taylor's previous company, Phoenix Resources, displaced indigenous communities and contaminated groundwater? Or in Nevada, where his extraction operations drained aquifers used by family farms for generations? The man in the expensive suit strode onto the stage, taking the microphone from Victoria. This meeting is clearly being derailed by misinformation. We'll reconvene when we can have a productive conversation based on facts, not conspiracy theories. As he spoke, I felt a prickling sensation at the back of my neck, the peculiar awareness of being watched. Slowly, I turned toward the side entrance of the community center. Charles Taylor stood in the doorway, his silver hair and patrician features instantly recognizable from news coverage of his arrest. Our eyes locked across the room, and I saw the moment of recognition dawn on his face. Confusion, disbelief, then cold fury. Jessica, I whispered urgently. Charles is here. We need to leave. Now. But it was too late. Charles was already moving through the crowd toward us, his expression murderous. The man on stage, clearly another Taylor operative, spotted his boss's movement and followed his gaze to where we sat. His eyes widened in recognition. Ladies and gentlemen, he announced, pointing directly at us, I should inform you that these disruptions appear to be orchestrated by individuals with a personal vendetta against Meridian. The women in the back, Emily Taylor and Jessica Collins, are related to a competitor who has been attempting to block our investments across the region. The room turned to stare at us. Jessica stood, her expression defiant. That's a lie. I'm Jessica Collins, and this is my sister Emily Collins. Not Taylor, not anymore. And we're not representing competitors. We're here because we've experienced firsthand what Charles Taylor and his operations do to communities like yours. I rose beside her, heart pounding but voice steady. Meridian Resources is a front for the same criminal enterprise that targeted our family's property for its lithium deposits. They bankrupted our father, kidnapped my sister, and buried at least one body on our land. And now they're here, using the same tactics on your community. Charles Taylor reached us, his rage barely contained beneath a veneer of civility. This is slander, he hissed, low enough that only we could hear. You'll regret this interference, Ms. Collins. Both of you will. Jessica's smile was glacial. Are you threatening us, Mr. Taylor? In a room full of witnesses? That seems unwise, given your current legal situation. The community center had descended into chaos, confused residents demanding answers, Victoria trying desperately to regain control of the narrative. Eleanor Blackwood distributing copies of her research to anyone who would take them. Charles glared at us, calculating odds and options in real time. "This changes nothing," he said finally. "You've created a temporary setback. Nothing more. Pinecrest will still be ours." "I don't think so," I replied, nodding toward the back of the room where two unfamiliar men in suits had entered. "The FBI agents who've been monitoring your activities since your release on bail seem very interested in this meeting, particularly given that approaching residence of Pinecrest likely violates the terms of your release." His eyes darted to the agents, who were indeed moving purposefully through the crowd toward him. The color drained from his face. "This isn't over," Charles promised, his voice a barely audible growl. "Actually, it is," Jessica countered. "Your son is negotiating a plea deal as we speak, turning state's evidence against you and your entire operation. He's not as loyal as you thought." I had no idea if this was true. Jessica might have been bluffing, but the flash of uncertainty in Charles's eyes suggested it was plausible enough to worry him. Before he could respond, the FBI agents reached us. "Mr. Taylor," the taller one said formally, "we need you to come with us. Your presence here constitutes a violation of your bail conditions." As they led him away, the remaining Meridian representatives were already gathering their materials, clearly recognizing that their Pinecrest operation had imploded. Victoria Reed attempted one final appeal to the crowd, something about misunderstandings and future conversations, but the damage was irreversible. The trust they'd carefully cultivated had evaporated in minutes. Eleanor approached us, her eyes bright with victory and lingering anger. "Well, that was illuminating. I don't think we'll be seeing Meridian resources in Pinecrest again anytime soon." "Don't be too sure," I warned. "They're persistent, but at least now the community is aware of what they're really planning. And we have contingencies in place," Jessica added. "The environmental groups Emily connected with are ready to file injunctions if Meridian attempts to move forward. The FBI is now actively monitoring their activities here, and I believe several landowners are reconsidering their preliminary agreements." Eleanor's gaze moved between us, curious and slightly awed. "You two came here specifically to stop them, didn't you?" This wasn't coincidence. I hesitated, then nodded. "We couldn't let them do to Pinecrest what they did to our family and community. But how did you know they'd be here? That they were targeting us specifically?" Jessica and I exchanged glances, silently debating how much to reveal. "Let's just say we have resources dedicated to tracking operations like Meridian's," I said finally. "Part of our work involves identifying vulnerable communities before predatory developers can establish themselves." It wasn't entirely untrue, though it glossed over the personal vendetta aspect of our involvement. "Well, Pinecrest owes you a debt of gratitude," Eleanor said, shaking our hands firmly, "though I suspect you won't be staying long enough to collect." She was right. With Charles Taylor aware of our presence and the FBI now involved, our effectiveness in Pinecrest was limited. We'd done what we came to do, exposed Meridian's true purpose, educated the community about the threat, connected local leaders with resources to continue fighting if necessary. As we walked back to the inn that night, the adrenaline of confrontation gradually subsided, leaving me with a strange mixture of satisfaction and melancholy. "We actually did it," Jessica said softly, voicing my thoughts. "We stopped them. For now," I cautioned. "The Taylors are resilient. As long as Charles is free, he'll keep trying. If not here, then somewhere else. Then we'll keep fighting," she replied with simple determination. "Not just for us anymore, but for all the Pinecrests out there. All the families like ours who don't yet know their targets." I looked at my sister, still fierce, still righteous, still the bravest person I knew, and felt a surge of clarity about my own path forward. This work, this protection of vulnerable communities against corporate predators, wasn't just a one-time mission of personal vengeance. It was a calling, a purpose that aligned perfectly with the woman I had become. "Yes," I agreed, linking my arm through hers as we walked beneath the star-filled Idaho sky. "We keep fighting. Together." 2 years after the Pinecrest confrontation, I stand at the edge of our family property in the Berkshires, watching as the first native saplings are planted where the cabin once stood. The old structure, with its decades of memories both beautiful and painful, has been respectfully dismantled. Its weathered boards repurposed for community projects, its foundation removed to restore the natural landscape. In its place, we've established the Collins Conservation Initiative, a demonstration site for environmentally responsible land management and a living laboratory for sustainable resource extraction technologies. The lithium beneath our property is still being harvested, but through an innovative process that minimizes disruption to the ecosystem, developed by researchers funded by our family trust. Jessica moves among the volunteers, her camera capturing images for the initiative's website, occasionally pausing to help plant a tree or direct a group of university students collecting soil samples. Her book, Buried Truths: How Corporate Predators Target American Communities, became an unexpected bestseller, catapulting her into a new role as a sought-after speaker on corporate accountability and environmental justice. Dad approaches, leaning more heavily on his cane these days, but his eyes bright with satisfaction as he surveys the transformation of his childhood home. "Your grandfather would be proud," he says, resting his hand on my shoulder. This is exactly what he hoped to protect when he kept the lithium secret all those years. "I wish I'd known him better," I reply, trying to imagine the geologist who discovered this deposit decades ago and chose conservation over exploitation. He must have been quite a man. "You're more like him than you know," Dad says with a smile. That same quiet determination. The principles that don't bend, even when it would be easier to compromise. The comparison warms me unexpectedly. I'd spent so many years defining myself in relation to Jessica, the cautious one to her brave one, the planner to her risk-taker, that I'd overlooked the strength of my own lineage, the quiet resolve that runs through the Collins blood. "How's Mom doing with the education center plans?" I ask, changing the subject before emotion overtakes me. Dad's smile widens. Unstoppable. The architects can barely keep up with her vision. She's determined to make it the premier facility for teaching young people about responsible resource management. Already has the curriculum planned through 2030. This, too, is part of our family's healing and reclamation, redirecting the wealth generated by our property toward education, conservation, and community support. The Collins family will never be billionaires like the Taylors aspired to be, but our legacy will be measured in forests preserved, communities strengthened, and future generations equipped to resist the exploitation that nearly destroyed us. My phone buzzes with a news alert, a notification I've set to track developments in the Taylor cases. I step away to read it, pulse quickening. "What is it?" Jessica asks, joining me with uncanny timing, always attuned to shifts in my mood. I hold up the phone so she can see the headline. "Charles Taylor, sentenced to 25 years in federal prison for fraud, racketeering, and environmental crimes." "Finally," she breathes, a complex mixture of emotions crossing her face. "And David?" His cooperation with prosecutors was apparently substantial. 12 years, eligible for parole in 8. I scroll through the article. He provided evidence against his father's entire network. Operations in 3 countries, bribes to officials, environmental violations going back 2 decades. Jessica's expression remains unreadable. "Do you ever wonder if he regrets it? Not just getting caught, but what he did to you, to us?" It's a question I've considered many times over the past 3 years. The man I married was a fabrication, a character created specifically to manipulate me, but somewhere beneath that performance was a real person who made calculated choices to deceive, to harm, to prioritize greed over human connection. "I think David regrets the consequences to himself," I say finally, "but I don't think he regrets the choices. In his mind, it was all just business." Jessica nods, understanding the distinction. "And for Richard?" Richard's case had been resolved earlier, a plea deal resulting in 5 years probation and community service in exchange for his cooperation. His betrayal, while profound, had been born of weakness rather than calculated malice. Jessica had divorced him swiftly, but never expressed the same visceral anger toward him that she harbored for the Taylors. "I don't know," I admit. "I think he might actually regret what he did to you, but that doesn't change the fact that he did it." We stand in silence for a moment, watching the activity around us. The volunteers planting trees, the researchers collecting samples, the community members who have come to support the initiative's launch. So much life and purpose emerging from what was once a site of deception and danger. "We should get back," Jessica says finally. Eleanor's presentation starts in 20 minutes. Eleanor Blackwood, our ally from Pinecrest who has become a close friend and collaborator, is presenting the findings from our latest community vulnerability assessment, identifying at-risk properties across New England, that show patterns of suspicious acquisition activity. What began as our personal mission to stop the Taylors has evolved into a nationwide network of community advocates, researchers, and legal experts working to prevent predatory land grabs before they can take root. As we walk toward the large tent where presentations are being held, I reflect on the journey that brought us here. From the traumatized sisters who confronted armed men in a remote cabin, to the confident women leading a movement for corporate accountability and community empowerment. The transformation hasn't been easy or linear. There were nightmares, panic attacks, days when grief over all we'd lost felt overwhelming, therapy sessions where we unpacked the layers of betrayal and its effects on our ability to trust, moments of doubt about whether we could truly make a difference against systemic exploitation so deeply entrenched in American capitalism. But there were triumphs too. Communities like Pinecrest that avoided the fate of Oak Ridge because of our intervention. Legislation we helped draft that increased transparency requirements for corporate land acquisitions. The Collins family property, once nearly stolen from us, now serving as a model for what responsible stewardship can achieve. And perhaps most importantly, the reclamation of our own narratives. No longer victims or pawns, but architects of change. Women who transformed personal trauma into purposeful action. Eleanor's presentation is powerful and data-driven, mapping patterns of suspicious land acquisitions and connecting them to potential resource deposits. The audience, a mixture of environmental advocates, community leaders, legal experts, and ordinary citizens concerned about protecting their towns, listens with focused attention, recognizing the importance of early identification and intervention. The predators are still out there, Eleanor concludes, her librarian's precision giving weight to her words. The Taylor organization may have been dismantled, but others operate with similar methods. Our best defense is knowledge, community solidarity, and rapid response when warning signs appear. As applause fills the tent, I feel a tap on my shoulder and turn to find Carmen Rodriguez, my former boss from the Evergreen Environmental Justice Initiative, now a key partner in our expanded network. Quite a change from that first conversation in my office, she observes with a smile. When I showed you those property records from Pinecrest, I never imagined it would lead to all this. Neither did I admit. It was supposed to be a one-time intervention. Personal. The personal is political, she reminds me, echoing a phrase that has become something of a mantra in our work. Your experience gave you insight that theoretical knowledge never could. That's why communities trust you and Jessica. You've lived what they're facing. After the presentations conclude, Jessica and I walk to the hilltop overlooking the property, the spot where our grandfather's oak tree still stands, its massive branches shading the ground where we once buried childhood treasures and where, years later, Jessica hid the evidence that saved both our lives. Do you ever miss it? I ask suddenly. Our old lives before we knew about any of this? When things seemed simpler? Jessica considers the question seriously, her gaze traveling across the land that has been both the source of our deepest wounds and our greatest purpose. No, she says finally. That simplicity was an illusion built on ignorance. I'd rather have the complicated truth than a comfortable lie. She turns to me, her expression softening. But I sometimes miss the Emily who didn't carry these burdens, who could trust without questioning, love without reservations. She was naive, I reply, thinking of the woman who had walked down the aisle toward David, blind to the deception surrounding her. She was also joyful, Jessica counters gently, open-hearted. We gained wisdom through all this, but we lost something too. It's okay to acknowledge that. Her words strike a chord I've been reluctant to examine, the part of me that has remained armored since discovering David's betrayal, wary of connection, suspicious of kindness that might conceal ulterior motives. The woman who had loved freely, believed in people's fundamental goodness, embraced life without cynicism. Where had she gone? Was she truly lost forever? I'm working on finding balance, I admit, between awareness and openness, between caution and hope. Jessica smiles, linking her arm through mine as she has countless times throughout our lives, in childhood adventures, through family struggles, in our darkest moments and brightest triumphs. You'll find it, she says with characteristic certainty. You're Emily Collins. You've faced down corporate criminals, rebuilt your life from scratch, helped create a national movement for environmental justice. Finding your way back to joy should be simple by comparison. As the sun begins to set over the Berkshires, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose, I allow myself to consider the possibility that she's right, that the strength I found in crisis might serve equally well in healing, that the woman who emerged from betrayal, clear-eyed, determined, purposeful, might also reclaim the capacity for trust, for joy, for open-hearted engagement with life, not by returning to naivete, but by choosing vulnerability with awareness, eyes open, boundaries firm, but heart unshuttered. The Taylors took much from my family, our property temporarily, our sense of security, years of our lives spent untangling their deceptions and healing from their violations. But standing here, with my sister beside me, and our shared purpose spreading roots as deep and strong as our grandfather's oak, I recognize what they failed to destroy, our essential connection to each other, to this land, to our own capacity for resilience and renewal. Charles Taylor will spend the remainder of his life in prison. David will emerge in middle age to a world where the Taylor name is synonymous with corporate criminality. Their empire of extraction and exploitation has crumbled, their fortune largely seized by the government or directed to restitution for communities they harmed. Meanwhile, the Collins family flourishes, not in wealth alone, but in purpose, in integrity, in the knowledge that we faced darkness and emerged not only intact, but transformed. We should head back, Jessica says as twilight deepens. They'll be starting the bonfire soon. I nod but remain a moment longer, wanting to fix this image in memory. Our land healing, our family restored, our work unfolding with purpose and meaning. Whatever comes next, the communities still to be protected, the predators still to be confronted, the personal territories of trust and intimacy still to be reclaimed, begins from this place of hard-won wholeness. Emily, Jessica calls, already moving down the hill toward the gathering. Coming, I reply, turning away from the view to follow my sister, as I always have, as I always will, toward the light of the community we've built, the future we're creating, and the truth that continues to set us free.